I'm really nervous. So many of you have asked me for a tutorial of some of my bridal makeup looks, so welcome to my first ever YouTube video. Let's get started. If you don't know, I started doing makeup about 4 weeks ago, so this is a very new experience for me. So I'm going to go through absolutely everything step by step with products for my most up-to-date makeup look, and then maybe we can work our way backwards if that's what everyone would like. But for now, welcome to Angel Glazed Donut makeup. First things first, I have prepped my skin. I don't use primer, and a lot of people think that that is a crime, but almost all of the bridal makeup artists that I've seen have said you really don't need primer, and I actually find that for my skin type I have very dry, dehydrated skin, but if I use a primer, for some reason I tend to get a lot of really clogged, blocked pores. So I don't use a primer, I just use my skincare. One of the things that I have learned is to do eyes first. Eyes and then base, particularly if you're doing something that's glittery or if you're doing something that has a little bit more potential for fallout. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my brows, and I'm using two brow products. This is the Maybelline Express Brow. It is a brow pencil and it's in the shade Black Brown. And then this is my very grubby NYX the brow glue. It's very well loved. Majority of my products are pretty much affordable makeup, and my wear tests on them are getting kind of like 16 hours plus. So for my brows, I basically just brush them through and I concentrate my pencil in the outer tail of my brow, and then I work my way to the tip, and I'll talk to you about how I change my hand positions as I go. So I'm just focusing with really light strokes on the tail of my brow, and I'm going into the direction, or I'm going with the direction of my hair growth, and then every so often I'll just go back and brush through them again so that I can highlight any spots where there are kind of gaps and a little bit of hair missing. As I start to work my way towards the middle and the front of my brow, I change my hand position. So where I've been quite flat to my face, I become slightly more claw-like, and I kind of bounce my pencil up and down with my fingers so that the strokes that I'm doing, it's almost like I'm pulling them up, and I find that that gives me a little bit of control, but also it doesn't place too much product into the brow itself. And if I do accidentally get a little bit too much product in there, what I do is I wiggle my spoolie that's on the other end back and forth through the brow, and it doesn't erase it completely, but it really softens it. And then with my brow glue, kind of go in two directions. I work my brow hairs down and up at kind of at the same time, and again working from the tail in. I think of my brow as thirds. So I've got the end section, the middle section, and then the top section, and by thinking of it as thirds, I have a little bit more control over each area of the brow, so that it's not, if there is something that I need to change, it's not the brow as a whole, it's just a section of the brow. You might find with the glue, when you're pushing the brow down, you might get some remnants of the pencil. If you do, just grab a makeup wipe or a little piece of cotton with some tissue with some makeup remover, or a little Q-tip with some makeup remover, and pop that on and just give it a little bit of a wipe. It just helps to clean up the area a little bit more. See? I'm going to move on to my eyes next. I'm using one eyeshadow palette at the moment, and that's the Natasha Denona Mini Eye Sculpt palette. I actually find that these are quite cool toned, and these two colours here are pretty much my skin tone and a highlighter. I actually use these to set my under eye, but we'll get onto that in a minute. I don't have a eyeshadow primer, and that is something that I definitely need, and I'm trying to find one that I like. I'm actually going to try NYX Pro Fix Sticks Correcting Concealers. I've got two shades, one is Alabaster and the other is Light. I saw that these are apparently a dupe for the NARS Creamy Pot Concealers, and I've been looking for a slightly thicker, creamier concealer, and this is definitely that. And actually the shade match is really, really good. It feels very mattifying and it doesn't feel sticky when it dries down. So I'm actually going to prep my eyelids with this and see how it goes. I do have a lot of allergies and a lot of sensitivities, so I have patch tested this for the last couple of days onto the inside of my wrist and as well onto the side of my jaw, and so far so good. It's been absolutely fine. To spread this out, because this looks a little bit crazy right now, I'm going to take a BK Beauty brush, the number 206. Okay, that spreads out really, really well. So that one that I used was light shade, shade Light. This one is Alabaster. I'm going to take the Alabaster and I'm going to pop it up near my eyebrow, and this is kind of going to carve my brow out. I'm kind of giving myself a highlight, and I'm bringing it slightly into my nose as well, and I can just blend this out a little bit so that that line isn't so harsh. Also, please keep in mind that I've been doing makeup for literally 5 weeks, so there's going to be things that I probably will do wrong. This is just what's working for me at the moment. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pressed powder. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish in the shade 1 Fair, and I'm going to set this because it is creasing. So I'm going to take a super fluffy brush for this. This is the A5A3 BK Beauty. The thing about having concealer as an eyeshadow base is that the concealer will suck up the eyeshadow. It will just absorb so much of it, and that's not necessarily great because you could lose some of the pigment. I can now feel that that's not tacky anymore, and one thing I have found with makeup is that it is good to be very tactile. To lightly touch, I kind of make sure that my hands are always cleansed before I get started, but making sure that I can feel what I'm doing has been probably one of the most important lessons. I start working on building up my eyeshadow. So for the glazed angel kind of look that I did, I kept it really, really light on the eyes because I'm going to be pulling my blush into my eyes to kind of blend everything together and give it a really ethereal look. I'm going to go back in with my Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette, and I'm going to use this shade, which is Light, and I'm going to put that basically all over. The bottom of my eye socket sits on the top of my eyeball. There isn't a lot of depth at all, so my crease very much is kind of where the top of my eyeball is, and I actually find that really difficult to put eyeshadows on because of that. I tend to go above and beyond where I should, but you know, it's just my anatomy and that's just what I have to work with. So I'm going to take the BK Beauty 209 brush and then this light shade in the Natasha Denona mini palette, press it all over my lid. Really small little taps as I go. I'm going to take a slightly bigger flat brush, and this is the BK Beauty 203 brush, and I'm going to take this shade here, which is medium. This is a slightly denser brush, so I'm going to tap off the product as I go. The key for me has been, in this entire process of learning how to do makeup, that actually start with nothing and build up to everything. So I tend to take small amounts onto my brush, onto my hand, and then pop that onto my face. Basically, with this medium shade, I've concentrated a lot of it into the outer corner of my eye because this is kind of where I want to build up. But now I'm going to take it and I'm going to pull it just into that crease in a windshield wiper motion. And I don't want to go too heavy with this because I want to add some dimension and definition to my eyes, but I don't want to add a lot of shadow, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to do the other eye, go back in with shade light, tap it all over. And if you also are like me and you have a little bit of a hooded eye, you can also pick up the eyebrow just so you can see with greater clarity where the top of your eye socket is. And I found that really actually helps me with this eye, not so much with this eye, but I've definitely seen that there is a difference when I do this. I'm going to take the same brush that I've been using for the medium shade and I'm going to go for the deep shade and I'm going to tap either side, and I'm really going to stay close to the lash line and into the outer third of this eye. I'm going to take this, which is the A504. I'm going to go in with the light and the medium, pick some up, tap it off. I'm going to use those to just blend out and blend through. So I've now got the definition that I need on the outer corner of my eye, because I don't want to do a cut crease, but I do want to put some shimmer in here. And so I'm leaving kind of a space for me to be able to do that. When it comes to blending as well, I find the position that I hold my brush in can differentiate how I'm blending. So if I hold it like this, I'm pushing pigment higher than my brow bone. But if I hold it like this, I am pushing the pigment into my eye socket. I've got these parts, the first 2/3 of my eye are lighter than the outer third of my eye, and then I've got this really highlighted brow bone. So I'm going to take an angled brush, and this is the 205 brush, and I'm going to take this lightest colour in this palette and I'm going to highlight with shadow the top of that brow and then blend down so that this doesn't look so disjointed. And now everything looks a little bit more cohesive. If I've come out a little bit too far, I can always take my cleansing wipe and I can just brush upwards like so, creating almost like a wing and making sure that my makeup isn't pulling my face down but is lifting my face up. Now, lots of people have different ways of putting their mascara on, etc. I curl my lashes every single time, then I'm going to pop some eyeliner into my upper waterline. One thing I will just say very quickly though about these NYX concealers is they are getting really patchy when mixing them with eyeshadow. I'm just going to take it off because this is not looking good at all. We're taking those out of the kit. I'm going back to my original, which is the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. So popping this onto the back of my hand. That's such a shame. It's really, really such a shame. And I'm just going to really quickly try and fix this. To take off my my new concealers because they went completely patchy. I love you. Okay, so concealer is now back on. Going back in with the Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Filter to reset that, and I'm just going to dab. Do you find that these Maybelline concealers do suck up every single bit of powder that I put on them? So I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing before. I do pop a tiny bit of waterproof mascara onto the very tips of my lashes. So literally just onto the tips like that, just so that the curl that I've just put in holds. I kind of think of it as like hairspray for my eyelashes, so I don't go anywhere near the base so that they don't get weighed down. Whilst they're drying, think about what I'm going to do for my lids. Now, I do want shimmer This is my favourite shimmer to use. Basically, because I am going in with a lighter glitter, I'm now going to take whatever was left on my concealer brush and I'm just going to pop it into my eye. I'm going to kind of, it's like a cut crease but slightly less extreme. I'm going to apply it with my finger. You don't have to. I find that applying it with my finger gives me a better colour payoff, because this almost gives like a wet look. It doesn't look like it's much, but when you put it on, it has the most beautiful iridescent glow, and I think it's perfect for like a glazed donut angel makeup kind of look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fluffy transition brush that I've used and I'm just going to blend that outer corner of my eyeshadow back into that shimmer a little bit, so that it looks like it's, again, like part of one another. Everything wants to look as though it belongs. That's how I kind of approach my makeup now, whereas before I just put stuff on and hoped for the best. So I'm really happy with how the eyes are looking right now, but what I am missing is a little bit of depth and definition on the underneath of my eyes. So I'm going to take a really dense flat brush. This is the BK Beauty 204 brush, and I'm going to take the darker medium, the deep colour from the Natasha Denona palette, and I'm just going to really lightly go and press into my lower lash line. By pressing, I feel like I can get really specific with the placement. I know exactly where I'm putting it, and where I'm putting it is exactly where I want it. And then, once again, taking a kind of denser pencil brush. This is the BK Beauty 207, and taking the slightly lighter one, just a touch, and just blending out that darker colour so that it doesn't look super stark. Take this teeny tiny brush that looks like this, and it's the 208 brush from BK Beauty. Stamping, never dragging, as close to the lash line as I can physically get it. Also, when I'm using a teeny tiny brush like this, I flip it round depending on where I get to my eye. So you know how with my eyebrows, I thought of my eyebrows as thirds. I do the same with my eye. I see my eye as halves. So for this first half, until I get to kind of where, if I'm looking straight ahead, where the middle of my pupil is, I'm using my brush in this direction so that the longest part faces the outer side of my eye. Once I start to get a little bit closer into the middle of my eye, and then for the second half, I actually flip it around and I use the pointier side facing left. Again, going in with my pencil blending brush and just not fully blending, but just taking away some of the harshness so that it doesn't look like a dark line. The eyes are starting to come together really well, and I'm starting to really like this. I have really sensitive eyes, so I think I didn't mention before, but the mascara that I used is the Clinique High Impact Waterproof Mascara. It's safe for sensitive eyes and for contact lens wearers. I used to get a blocked nose and runny eyes every time I wore mascara and eyeliner, and I just didn't realise that actually I wasn't using products that were made for people with sensitivities. So I use these. This is the Clinique quickliner for eyes. It's not waterproof, but as I've been practicing, I haven't wanted to use anything that's specifically waterproof, because I need to have something that is quite malleable and that I can move around a fair amount. But this is the shade Dark Chocolate, and I'm going to tight line the underneath of my eye. Now you can do this in a number of different ways. You can pick your eye up, or you can look down, or you can do whatever you feel comfortable with. Take this liner again, and I'm going to gently, really gently swipe across where my lash line is. I get asked the same question all the time, and it is, what am I putting under my eyes. It's the NARS Light Reflecting Eye Brightener in the shade Night Swan. I chose this shade in particular because it is ever so slightly peachy. And because I have quite a fair skin tone, the peachier shade also does a little bit of colour correcting. My favourite brush to use for this is actually the Makeup Revolution Deluxe Crease Brush. I dip it into the pot, tap off on the back of my hand, and that is definitely also something that I've learned through this entire experience, is to always tap off any product excess, and I press it in. I don't wipe because my under eyes are really sensitive, so I just tap in. Over the years of like watching people do their makeup, is that I was really scared to find new techniques because the techniques that other people use weren't always the right techniques for me. I'm also having a rosacea flare today, so my skin is looking like super red, and it is also really hot. So then once I've popped this down, I actually go in with a different concealer. I use the Maybelline Magic Eraser in the shade 1. And again, it pops up on the back of my hand. This is really peachy. It's a very peachy coloured concealer. And because it's peachy, it also does a little bit of that colour correcting that I need it to do. I'm using this brush. This is the BK Beauty A506. This is my favourite brush to use for concealer. And then I literally just tap again. I also take an opportunity, now that I've got some of the concealer, is to colour correct any areas of my face that need some colour correction. So I'm just going to take the same brush, pop the rest of the concealer that's on the back of my hand, and then actually mix it. And when you mix it, you can see that actually the green kind of disappears, and that's what I then want to put onto my nose and down a little bit onto my cheeks. I don't mind my redness showing. I don't have a problem with it. It is literally just part of who I am. So I don't feel offended if some of my redness is peeking through. I don't mind that. I know other people might. Covering it up is not necessarily a priority for me, but it is something that I can do if I want to. I do have some hyperpigmentation here that's been caused by a clogged pore, or 2 clogged pores actually. So I'm just going to take again my concealer and my colour corrector. I'm going to mix them, and actually that turns into like the perfect foundation shade for me. And I'm just going to pop it here. I used to be really embarrassed of my rosacea, having red skin, having skin that doesn't look or feel perfect. And then I turned 30, and then I turned 32, and I stopped caring. One of my problems is, I think, when it came to makeup, is that I didn't actually care at all. Now I care about how my makeup looks, but I don't care about necessarily how other people think that I look when it comes to my skin. And now my base is looking slightly calmer. I'm gonna take my makeup wipe, and I'm going to wipe off my palette, which is the back of my hand, because now it's time for foundation. I had been using this Fenty Beauty foundation. It's in the shade 150 Neutral. It's been absolutely incredible in terms of shade match. However, that was the reason that my pores were clogged. So take foundation on the back of my hand. If you buy any BK Beauty brush, let it be this one. I used to have to use a sponge. I don't use a sponge anymore. And people keep saying to me, I don't understand how you're getting such good results just using a brush. It's this brush. It is literally just this brush. So foundation is on the back of my hand. I'm going to take some onto the brush, and I'm going to dance it around my hand like that. I now have some product loaded, but I really want to get in there, and I want to make sure that my brush is filled and evenly dispersed with as much product as I need. And I still have a little bit of product on the back of my hand, so if I need a little bit more, I can take a little bit more. With this, I either can swipe it down, or I can just press it in, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to stipple my foundation in. I'm not going to go up to my eye because I've already kind of concealed that area. I don't need to. But I'm just really lightly dabbing the brush into my skin. I know that this side of my face is more red than this side, so I'm going to take a little bit more. If you can't get a hold of this brush, I think it's £28. If it's outside of your budget, which is understandable, a denser angled brush, if you can find one, should work relatively in the same way. I personally have never found a brush that I have liked. I have never used brushes for my base ever. I find that with this brush, and particularly with this foundation, my skin kind of just looks like my skin, but better. Next step in the routine for me is bronzer. So I don't use a contour. I thought I needed to contour, and then you all told me that I didn't. So what I actually do now is I reverse contour, but I have to start with a bronzer. So this is the e.l.f. Camo Liquid Bronzer and Contour, and it's in the shade Light, Fair Light. Again, take my product and I pop it onto the back of my hand. And for this one, I kind of spread it out a little bit because I need to coat the bristles of my brush. I'm then gonna do it, I'm gonna do it with the 109 brush. And I'm gonna make sure, again, that all of my bristles are coated with product. I find that sometimes by not doing that, it can look really patchy. So for my bronzer, I'm gonna stay away from anywhere near the bottom of my cheek, and I'm gonna go up here, and I'm gonna start at my temple. And it's really important that I start at my temple, because by doing so, I differentiate my bronzer and the movements of my bronzer to my blush. So I start at my temple and I work my way over and across my cheekbone. And then I pick up some more product if I need to and go into my forehead. And again, I'm building this up slowly. I don't need to put the product onto my face and then blur it out. All I need to do is make sure I'm building up as I go. This has been my favourite find of discovering makeup, because I have never found a bronzer that was cool toned enough for me to use. My under eyes are creasing quite badly, so I'm just going to take my fingers and kind of try and settle out those creases a little bit without wiping off product. And then I'm going to take my Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Filter onto that fluffy brush again, and I'm just going to pat as close to my eye as I possibly can. I don't want to bring it down here just yet. I know some people will say to use loose powder. Unfortunately, I can't find a loose powder that doesn't dry my skin out to the point where it feels super uncomfortable. But one thing I also do is I take the same fluffy brush and I go in with this Natasha Denona shade mixed with this one, so that is fair and light, and I just go over where I put that Charlotte Tilbury, and I find that it helps me to crease less, and it doesn't look as dry and flaky and patchy. I have recently discovered cluster lashes, and they've been my favourite newest discovery. So I'm using the Eyelure cluster lashes. They are the fluffy ones. They do come with an adhesive, but I don't really like it, so I use this duo adhesive. One thing that I do is I actually use the tray as like a little like a pot. So I pop a tiny bit of the adhesive in there, and then I just dip my lashes into here when I need them. The thing that I really like about these in particular is that the adhesive is not on the band, the adhesive is on the lashes. So cluster, holding it in my tweezers, and I'm just going to very lightly tap into the glue, and then I'm going to set that down because I want it to dry. Cluster lashes ideally are supposed to go underneath your eyes. I find that these ones don't stay if I do that. So I'm going to put them on the top. If you want to put them on the bottom, you can. My eyes are so sensitive that even the tiniest bit of this glue in my eye stings really badly. So to pop these on, I take my little handheld mirror, which is actually my Huda Beauty eyeshadow palette that I never use because they're the wrong colours for me. And I'm going to bring it down and I'm going to look down and I'm going to place this right up against my eyelashes. After I've let them set for a second, I add a tiny bit more glue onto them and then I press that glue up against into my eye so that there's a little bit of glue on my lash line now so that it's easier for them to stick. And I'm going to take my eyelash curler and I'm going to so gently squeeze my eyelashes and the clusters together. And when I say gently, I mean so gently. And then I'm going to pop a tiny bit of my waterproof mascara on to both my eyelashes and the clusters, and that will really help them to kind of stick together. This eye's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I'll do the next eye and then I'll come back. My favourite blush for this look is, again, e.l.f. and it is the shade Bold Faced Lilac. Like everything else, I'm going to take, it's so pigmented, I'm going to pop some onto the back of my hand. It is the most gorgeous true tone lilac colour. My absolute favourite brush to use for my blush is this BK Beauty What a Shock brush. It's number 112 or 112, 112, whatever you want to call it. This is my favourite. It is angled, but it's fluffy. So where the foundation brush is angled and dense, this is angled and fluffy, and it gives a much more airbrushed look. So again, taking the product onto the brush before the product goes anywhere near my face, tapping off some of the excess into the palm of my hand, and then where I went with my bronzer, which is starting at my temples and working my way down, for my blush I want to start in kind of like where the outer corner or the outer third of my eye is, and I want to start it quite high, work my way out, and then for this angel glazed donut look I want to work it up into my eyeshadow so that I have this really stunning lifted blend, and then I bring it down into my inner cheek area. That for me is how you get that really angel makeup kind of angelic glow. Now the blush might look a little bit crazy for the first kind of couple of minutes, but let me land, because you might have noticed that I haven't used any brightening concealer, and the reason I haven't used any brightening concealer is because my favorite trick for opening up the eye area is to use my concealer to blend into my blush. It has been such a game changer for me. Also, again, with the products, light hand, stippling with the blush, not dragging, not doing this. I personally, because I have very dry skin, if I start swiping, it's going to start lifting up layers of skin. So I don't do that. I just stipple and work it in as much as I possibly can, whilst also going into that brow bone as well. So this is looking really bold, and I don't mind that for two reasons. The first one is that we're going to add some concealer, and the second one is that we're going to reverse contour. So for this, I'm going to take my Maybelline Fit Me in the shade 5. I'm going to pop on the back of my hand, and I'm going to use that underneath my eyes. A501 Angie Hot and Flashy brush from BK Beauty. And I'm going to pop this into the inner corner, down into the cheek area, and then across. Really working it almost into the blush. And right now you're thinking, that looks terrible, that looks patchy. Basically, the idea is that everything looks blended. I'm using a slightly lighter concealer for the underneath of this eye area, just to add kind of that highlight. So this is kind of where we're at now. Things are looking a little crazy, but that's fine. We're going to do two things. We're going to go back in with our blush brush, not going to put anything on there, nothing, not a single thing, just taking all of the leftover product that's still on there, working it back in, and again working it back in. Then my foundation brush, tapping it over. Then for my reverse contour, this is the only time that I will literally pop product onto my face, and I'm going to come down like this, go underneath, oh, getting in my hair, and swipe down. I have natural shadows on my face, and so because I have that, I don't necessarily need a separate contour to create that shadow. I just need something to highlight it. So with my foundation brush, I've been putting my foundation on so that the highest part of the angle is kind of what's controlling the motion. Now I'm going to switch it around so that it's facing, so like its butt, the shortest angle, is now going to go and tap underneath my cheekbone. And by doing so, it blends it out, again, blends into the blush, and it doesn't give you a super harsh line. But see, it's kind of created a little bit of contour. Now I actually do think I need a little bit more blush for this. So instead of going back in with the liquid blush, I'm going to take a powder blush. This is the NYX Buttermelt blush in the shade My Butter Half. And I'm going to take a super, super fluffy brush. As big, as fluffy as I possibly can, because this is so ridiculously pigmented. I don't want a lot, but I just, A, want to seal my liquid blush, and B, I want to give kind of like a diffused look. Now this is fragranced. It doesn't necessarily, it says flavour and aroma, and I find that with flavour and aroma, I'm actually okay. I'm very sensitive to fragrance, but the flavour and aroma is actually not as bad for me because there isn't any alcohol added into that. Oh, I've just knocked my eyelash. And then I do a little bit on my nose. I am really struggling to find a translucent powder that I can use to bake and set. I had a reaction to one that I tried last week. So unfortunately, I'm just stuck with using something that I know is safe for me, which is this Charlotte Tilbury pressed powder. So what I do is I take some onto a powder puff. I really make sure I get in there. I have a really thin, light layer onto the powder puff, but I still will tap it out onto the back of my hand, build it up, tap it out, and then I will go underneath my eye and down into the side of my nose, pressing it down into my smile lines, because I know that I do crease up there quite quickly. Always tapping it off on the back of my hand into my forehead, paying particular attention to my T-zone, and then into where I've placed concealer for that reverse contour. I'm loving the pinkiness, I'm loving the glowiness. I want to add a tiny bit more glow, so I'm going to add a bit of highlighter. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Glow Glide Face Architect Highlighter in Pillow Talk Glow. It is quite pinky, and I would like something that is less pinky. So I'm gonna have a look. Probably gonna get the NYX Buttermelt highlighter when they launch. Again, a BK Beauty brush. This is N15. Popping that highlighter onto the highest point of my cheekbone, up into my brow bone, tiny dot onto my nose, and again onto this other cheek, and then up into my brow bone. I never used to like highlighter, so this is new for me. I actually can see a little bit of where I just need a tiny bit more powder. So I'm just going to take my fluffy brush again and my pressed powder and just go underneath my eyes with the brush. Pretty much the base, that's the base pretty much done. Everything is set, everything is highlighted that I want to be highlighted. Now comes the lips, and arguably the lips is my favourite part of my whole look. I never used to wear lipstick or lip gloss. I just used to basically put a tiny bit of lip liner. The lip combo, this is my new favourite. I love it so much. MAC Well lip liner, NYX Fat Oil Slick Click in the shade DM Me, and then Kiko Milano Hydro Gloss in the shade 5. I'm obsessed with this combination. It fits this look so well. When it comes to my lips, I don't overline my whole lip. I'll overline my cupid's bow, and I'll keep the rest completely natural and just follow my natural lip line. I also have a double lip line on my bottom lip, which can make things a little bit trickier. And so I kind of just go by feel and what I want from the look. I think of my lips as contouring. So I'm not adding lip liner to my lips, I'm adding contour to my lips in the same way I would add bronzer and blush to my face to kind of contour out. I do the exact same to my lips. And then what I do is I take the back of the Well pencil and I blend my lip liner. And that will diffuse and add almost like a little bit of a gradient. Then I'm going to take the Fat Oil Slick Click by NYX in the shade DM Me. And now you're going to see the blush and the lips tie together. It is the most perfect lilac shade. And I think it works so well with Well, because Well is a cool toned lip liner. I'm going to go back in with the lip liner and just make sure that I've still got the definition that I want in the outer corners. So everything looks blended and seamless. If I need to tidy my lips up, because I've kept my concealer brush, I can just very quickly go underneath and make sure everything's tidy. So I personally love this and would just leave my lips how they are, but this is the Kiko Milano 3D Hydro Gloss, and honestly these are absolutely phenomenal. I'm obsessed with them. I bought 4 different colours because I love them so much, and it just finishes this lip look off so well. It's also got a really interesting applicator. The applicator feels like there's a dip in it, and so it actually captures a lot more of the gloss than a normal gloss applicator I think would, or a normal doe foot would. I'm neurodiverse, so wearing lip gloss is difficult for me because I don't like it when the wind blows and my hair sticks to it, but for this, as I said in the start, this is my very first video on YouTube, my very first attempt at trying to do a full tutorial. But also let me know in the comments what you want to see more of, what I can, you know, what I can do to kind of help you feel more confident about makeup, because if I've learned anything over the last month and a bit, it's that actually makeup can be really accessible, and I'm 32 and I'm just learning how to do this. But if there is anything that you would like me to do differently, anything you want me to do more of, any ideas of what you would like me to do next, let me know. I do have some plans, but also I'm kind of letting you guys lead me into where you want me to go as well. So thank you so much for watching. Have the best day.